Rising from desert bedrock like a monument to eternity, the Great Pyramid of Giza was built as the eternal tomb of Pharaoh Khufu more than 45 centuries ago. Each of its 2.5 million stone blocks was set to form a perfect square, its sides aligned to within fractions of a degree.
At first light, the ancient necropolis stirs. The builders of Egypt's first great stone monuments chose this high, dry promontory of limestone not by accident, but by design. Here, the plateau stood above the annual flood of the Nile, yet close enough that the river could.
In the ancient imagination, geometry was never just geometry. The pyramid was not simply a mountain of stone, it was a sunrise frozen in place. Each of its 4 faces leans upward like a ray of light, converging at the point where the sun itself emerges.
Each block holds a history older than the plateau itself. Giza's limestone formed in an ancient seabed packed with the crushed shells of countless marine creatures. Those fossils, now locked in stone, give the rock its speckled grain and its surprising strength. Beneath the desert surface,
on the edge of the Nile Valley, more than 45 centuries ago, a sequence of ambitions was carved into stone. Around 2580 BCE, Pharaoh Khufu launched the vast project that became the Great Pyramid. By 2560, it's 2.5
floored. Each year, when the Nile swelled with the summer rains, the floodwaters would lap right up to this plateau. Ancient engineers carved sheltered basins along the riverbank, harbors lined with stone like the one before us. Barges, heavy with limestone and granite, could float directly to the heart of the project.
At the edge of the desert where the Nile once reached, the Giza necropolis begins. Here, every monument was part of a single, carefully planned journey into eternity. The royal dead first arrived at valley temples like this one, built of massive granite and limestone and set near the river's floodplain.
As the sun bows to the western horizon, the stones of Giza glow like embers of a fading fire. To the ancient Egyptians, this was more than evening, it was the threshold. Here the pharaoh began his voyage beyond the setting sun, sailing with Ra through the night sky. The pyramids.
Under the hammering light of the midday sun, the pyramids of Giza rise from the desert like carved mountains. Each was a royal tomb, engineered to guide a pharaoh into eternity, but they were also statements of earthly authority. Their immense size, perfect geometry, and the labor they commanded proclaimed.
From this height, the pyramid seems eternal, a mountain hewn by human hands. But what we see today is only the skeleton of Khufu's vision. Originally, every face was wrapped in polished white Tura limestone, blocks so smooth and bright that sunlight would have made the monument shudder.
Hidden in the scoured limestone behind the pyramids, these quarries were the beating heart of ancient Giza. Here, copper chisels and wooden mallets carved furrows into the plateau, freeing blocks that could weigh as much as a family of elephants. Workers slid the stones on sledges, their ropes of...
On this river, 4,000 years ago, stones heavier than a herd of elephants were set afloat. From the quarries of Aswan, these granite blocks began a journey of hundreds of kilometers, riding the current north toward the builders of Giza. Crews like this steered...
To move blocks weighing tens of tons, workers placed them on wooden sledges like this one. A rope crew hauled from the front while others tightened lines along the sides to keep the stone steady. By pouring water onto the sand ahead of the runners, they reduced friction.
With tools no harder than copper and wood, ancient masons shaped mountains. The copper blade, soft by modern standards, was sharpened often, then driven by a wooden mallet. Each tap sliced a hair of limestone away, leaving silky ridges in its wake. For finer details,
these fine ridges are no accident. Each groove was cut by a copper chisel driven again and again into the limestone 4,000 years ago. The slight step at the end of the stroke shows where the craftsman lifted his tool to clear debris. Under magnification.
Each summer, the Nile rose over its banks and swept across the floodplain. What looked like loss was opportunity. Water reached quarries, villages, and building sites, turning the desert into a temporary harbor. Instead of dragging heavy limestone blocks for miles across sand, workers...
Granite was quarried hundreds of kilometers south in Aswan, ferried up the Nile, and hauled through the desert, an effort far greater than shaping the local limestone that makes up most of this pyramid. Yet Khufu's builders reserved it for only a few places. The king's chamber, its released.
Side by side, the contrast could not be clearer. Local desert limestone, coarse and porous, packed with shell fragments and pockets of sand, forms the bulk of the pyramid's core. Beside it, the casing stone brought from Tura quarries across the Nile appears almost.
teams of 30 men pull in unison, ropes biting into their shoulders, the sled grinding over sand slicked by water and mud. Each group is tied to a single block, its weight more than 10 tons. They move on a strict rhythm, a lead...
From the docks, stone arrives by river, quarried upriver, floated here on cedar-bellied barges. It meets a road of packed silt and limestone dust, engineered to run almost straight to the rising pyramid.
Sleds ride the dampened track hauled by teams of men in rhythm.
Beneath the shadow of the pyramids, the builders did not live in chaos. They lived here, within a purpose-built village of stone and mud brick, arranged like a grid. Rooms doubled as homes and workshops. Bakers ground grain, doctors treated injuries, and scribes kept track of rations.
When we talk about accessible design, the humble ramp may be the oldest tool in the kit. Traditional ramp theory begins with the ratio, 1 unit of rise for every 12 of run. That 8.3% slope is forgiving to wheelchairs, carts, and legs alike. Adequate landings every 9.
Imagine hauling 50-ton blocks not up a straight ramp, but around the very skin of the pyramid. One theory suggests engineers built a continuous spiral, hugging the perimeter like a massive corkscrew. As each course of stone rose, the ramp climbed with it.
Raising a multi-ton block doesn't always need ropes and cranes. Here, a simple lever does the heavy lifting. First, the fulcrum is tucked close to the block. Pressing down on the long arm magnifies the force, prying the stone upward just enough to slide in a wedge. Add a second wedge, and the block sits a little higher.
Imagine a ramp hidden inside the body of the Great Pyramid, spiraling upward like a giant stone corkscrew. This is the internal ramp hypothesis, and you're looking at a reconstruction of how it might have worked. Workers could haul blocks along this enclosed roadway, turning corners with levers.
Layer after layer, stone after stone, the pyramid rises. Each block weighs tons, yet thousands of hands coax them into place with levers, sledges, and strength. Scholars estimate that it took more than 2 decades of steady labor to create this mountain of masonry.
Long before the compass was known along the Nile, builders turned to the sky, with cords knotted to measure equal spans, a bronze plumb bob to find the true vertical, and the merket, an instrument of simple wood and string. They mapped the heavens onto the desert floor. At dusk they traced a star's passage.
To cradle a roof of stone this heavy, the architects begin with a map of forces. Each rib channels the load, not straight down, but outward, where the walls are thickest. Above the dome, they carve a stack of empty spaces, relieving chambers. Like hollow cushions, they shave weight off the crown, guiding.
Beneath this vast weight of stone, a narrow throat drops away from the sunlight. The ancients called it simply the descending passage. It angles 45 degrees into the heart of the pyramid, carved with brutal precision, polished smooth as if to guide something, or...
Beyond the low limestone corridor opens the so-called Queen's Chamber, its gabled ceiling rising like an inverted hull, its walls still marked with the red guidelines of Old Kingdom masons. No burial was ever found here. Some argue the niche held a statue of the king's...
Every tap leaves a groove and a record. Workers here chisel not only to shape the stone, but to sign their effort. These are ancient time cards. When we map them across a wall, patterns emerge. Teams, rotations, overseers. They show how labor was divided, how many hands...
In the heart of the Great Pyramid lies a space hewn from fire-hard granite, blocks weighing tens of tons set with a precision that still defies easy explanation. Their surfaces, speckled with black crystal and flecks of quartz, form walls that rise like a quiet canyon around.
Beside the base of the Great Pyramid lie long, stone-lined trenches. For millennia, they hid a treasure, the disassembled cedar boat of a king. These pits served as time capsules. When reassembled, the craft is over 40 meters long, its planks sewn together.
We're gliding through the grand gallery of the Great Pyramid, a stone corridor 46 meters long and 8.5 meters high. Its walls step inward, course by course, creating the dramatic corbelled vault above us. Each block leans just a handspan farther.
At first light, the Sphinx stirs in gold. Carved from a single ridge of bedrock, half lion, half man, it faces the rising sun as it has for nearly 5,000 years. The body of a lion speaks of strength and vigilance. The human head wears the royal headdress.
With a final push, the last block slides home. For months, craftsmen have cut, smoothed, and numbered every stone. Their work sealed now in the desert's hush. Copper chisels finish the edge. Mortar binds it. Over the join, the falcon of the sun is pressed, declaring the tomb complete. Incense.
Along the flanks of the Great Sphinx, the limestone is scalloped and grooved like melted wax. These rounded troughs climb high up the enclosure walls, carved not by drifting sand, but by water, rainwater cascading down in ages when this...
Rising above the Giza Plateau, the Great Pyramids are the eternal silhouettes of kings, but the story of those who surrounded them lies just a few steps away. As the camera glides east, the stone terrain flattens into a checkerboard of mastabas, low, rectangular tombs built for high...
From the south side, the Sphinx looks less like a statue and more like a survivor. Vertical gullies run down its ribs. Rounded hollows scoop into its flanks as if the stone were once softened by flowing water. On the walls of the enclosure, the same pattern repeats, deep undulations cut into the limestone.
Carved from the bedrock of the Giza Plateau, the Great Sphinx gazes east, aligned with the rising sun. But its position is no accident. The statue sits at the head of a processional causeway, a stone path once lined with sphinxes of lesser scale, binding it to the valley.
At the center of the cosmic web lies a mystery, a yawning sphere nearly 2 billion light-years across the Big Void. Astronomers once considered it an accident of clustering, but simulations suggest a different narrative, an evacuated region bound by a subtle lattice. Could a supercivilization of...
In the darkness of the plateau, the Great Pyramid holds its place as it has for more than 45 centuries. Its 4 sides are oriented so precisely that each deviates from true north by less than 3 arc, about the width of a fingernail at arm's length. Edge to edge, the base is
dead. In 2017, physicists peered through the stone of the Great Pyramid without lifting a single block. By tracking cosmic ray muons, tiny particles that constantly rain through our atmosphere, they turned the pyramid into a natural particle detector. As the muons streamed down through more than...
From a distance, these pale blocks look like scales on a giant stone creature. Up close, you can see where the skin has been stripped away. The smooth casing stones once wrapped the whole pyramid in a brilliant shell of white limestone. By the late Middle Ages, builders in Cairo...
Beneath the shadow of the Great Pyramid, a different story is being uncovered. Here, archaeologists are peeling away layers of sand that once covered the workers' village, the place where the people who built the monuments lived their daily lives. They find bread molds by the dozens, vats for brewing beer, and even...
Modern archaeology is peering into the past without lifting a single stone. High-resolution thermal imaging reveals pockets of unexpected warmth, clues to cavities sealed for millennia. LiDAR sweeps the surface with millions of laser points, creating a precise digital skin. Ground-penetrating radar dives...